It's the cold hard truth. Everyone really want to know what's going on with her show. Just get on the air and you will know it's Sandra. The queen of the mile road is here, helping people from everywhere. Get on the phone and you will hear Sandra. Now she will tell you how it goes, but don't you ever step on her toes, 'cause you will hear the cold hard truth from Sandra. They say she's the hero in town, helping people from all around. You get a call, your money is found, it's Sandra. Some will call her late at night just to say that there is a fight, and she will not just leave it alone. She'll get up and call on the phone, and when politics starts on her show, everyone really wants to know the way that things will really go with Sandra. And some will start to criticize, get on the show and tell pure lies, but someday we'll realize it's Sandra. And when they start to argue again, she'll pull the heads to the wind, and soon you will be a friend of Sandra. 'Cause every day everyone wanna hear from Sandra. 'Cause every day everyone wanna hear from Sandra. 'Cause every day everyone got to hear from Sandra. 'Cause every day everyone got to hear from Sandra.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, beautiful folks. Happy Thursday, August the 13th. Hope that you guys are having a fantastic week thus far. We are ready for an amazing and beautiful show, as always, here today. So we do have Mr. Marlon Bodden, who's going to be joining us from CBC. We're going to bring him into the studio here in just a second. Now, I am aware that radio hasn't connected, so just give us a minute. Let's try to get that sorted out before we welcome Mr. Bodden into the studio. So in the meantime, everybody's good. Good morning to Michelle. How you doing? She says, good morning, everyone, in the beautiful Cayman Islands. Wonderful. Let me just get our links together. Good morning to the beautiful Abby. How you doing, honey child? So good to see you here. As usual, Abby's a regular. She's here pretty much every day, and we love it. Thank you, Abby. And all of the others, the countless others who make sure they show up every day for the program. I'm always surprised at how people are tuned in and keenly listening to what is going on today and every day, quite frankly. So just by way of an update, I have said to you guys that I'm not getting into this situation with Miss Teen, and I intend to keep that promise. What I will tell you, though, because it's still a news story, but I'm not getting into the back and forth and the sus and all that stuff. They're going to have to figure that out on their own, along with their parents. I can tell you that it's a hot mess, and every day it's becoming more of a hotter mess. However, well-placed sources have informed me that today there should be some official and formal announcement about who the winner is. I mean, imagine that for a second, folks. We are going into the, what is this now, a week, right? And still no indication of who the winner is. That tells you all you need to know about this pageant and what a situation it must be. But like I said, I'm going to leave it right there. Hopefully today it will finally be sorted out and we can go from there. Let me just see here now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So let me just see if we can retry the radio feed here in just a second. Little bit of action yesterday. Someone got bitten by something in the ocean. I mean, some people think it's a shark. Some people think it's a barracuda. I don't know. All I know is there are critters and creatures in the ocean that will bite you accidentally thinking that you're food. And so, what can you do? Gosh, thankfully, there were some amazing people there ready and willing to assist her because this could have ended really, really badly. So, of course, most people automatically assume that when you're in the ocean and something bites you, that it must be a shark. Well, not necessarily. There are other things that will bite you. Thankfully, I think she's going to be okay. And we want to thank a young man who we understand was very, very instrumental in giving her some much needed assistance in that regard. Young Caymanian from East End jumped in to action there at Governor's Beach, stepped up to the plate and assisted her. So big shout out this morning to Mr. Joel Bodden. And thank you so much, young man, for doing the right thing. I mean, sometimes we see something going on and, we get scared and intimidated ourselves. And, we run for cover. He did not do that. He jumped in and assisted this young lady. And this could have very well saved her life because, listen, I don't know how serious the bite is, but what I do know is when something like this happens, you panic and then, other things can ensue as you are panicking. So, wow, I'm glad that everything worked out okay. And hopefully she's on the road to recovery. Just be careful. I mean, like I said, it's the ocean. It's the big, beautiful ocean. And there's a lot out there in it. And you just never know, right? So, yeah, I think she'll be okay. So I appreciate once again all of the people that came forward and assisted her. All right, no luck with the radio feed. Just give me a second here. I am going to just send this to one of the tech folks overseas and see if they have any suggestions in terms of what else we could possibly do here this morning. Okay, give me 1 second here. All right. These people are in the UK. All right. And on my end, let me just unplug it as well. Sometimes something just needs a good unplugging, honey chia. That's what your IT guy always tells you, right? When something's not working, they say, oh, just unplug it. Because half the time they can't even figure it out themselves. Just do a hard reboot. So let me try that and see if that's helpful. I'm not sure it will be, but because I'm literally trying to connect via the computer as well, and that's not working. So let's try a reboot, and then we'll see if that's meaningful. So we're going to go ahead and invite Mr. Bodden on here, but let me just give you guys an update. You know that we, and a lot of you were messaging me yesterday, we're all anxiously waiting on the verdict of Damien. Is it Damien or Davian? Damien, right. He's actually a junior. And he is now awaiting the verdict on murder charges for young Alicity, who was basically a baby, a toddler, there in Cayman Brac who lost her life under tragic circumstances. And so we are all anxiously awaiting the verdict. The juror was out, 12 of them, 12 women, men and women were out all day yesterday. And they have not yet come to a decision. Everybody is anxiously waiting. Let me put it that way. Media is waiting. Obviously, the family is waiting as well. And they came back with a few questions yesterday for the judge, and the judge has to answer those questions. And yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's a unfortunate situation all the way around. Lots of questions. I know you guys have questions of me about things relating to it. And what I will say to you is after the trial, we can discuss some of those elements. I don't want to say anything. Although the jury is out, I still don't want to say anything about the matter because judicially, it is still out with a jury. So let's not mess anything up by having too much to say. Let's wait until the verdict hopefully comes through today, and then we take it from there. Seems like they're taking their time, which I think is fair enough. It's quite a serious charge, obviously. And you have to make sure that the jury is confident in their decision. And also, I would say that you lessen the chances of appeal when everybody takes their time and they do it the right way. All right, just waiting on confirmation. If you hear us on radio, give me a little thumbs up in messaging, and then we're going to go ahead and invite Mr. Bodden onto the program. And I think we're going to be pretty set and ready to go here. All right, so Mr. Marlon Bodden is now the head, as of July 1st, of CBC. And I think that so many people were very pleased about this appointment. He's been with the agency and with enforcement for many, many years. And in fact, his experience in these areas have made him most qualified, amply qualified, I should say, for this appointment. And so perhaps it was no surprise to some of you that he got the position. I do know that there were obviously other people who were vying for it, and we are pleased that a Caymanian was successful. So joining us this morning is Mr. Marlon Bodden, the newly appointed director of the Cayman Islands Customs and Border Control Service. He brings more than 3 decades, folks, of public service and law enforcement experience to the position, including over 10 years in border security, customs administration, and organizational leadership. Before taking up this appointment, he served as CBC's Deputy Director of Management Support Services, with responsibility for several critical areas, including investigations, anti-money laundering, professional standards, workforce development, and sister islands operations. He holds a Bachelor of Laws with honors degree, has completed advanced leadership and criminal justice training in the United Kingdom at the FBI Training Academy in Quantico, and is also a certified anti-money laundering specialist. Mr. Bodden officially assumed the role of director on July the 1st, 2026, and joins us this morning to discuss his vision for CBC, supporting frontline officers, strengthening professionalism and accountability, and improving customer service and protecting the Cayman Islands borders. So good morning to Mr. Bodden. Welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
I am very fine, Ms. Sandra. Thank you very much for having me on your show. Appreciate it. I want to say good morning to your listening audience, as well as good morning to the Cayman Islands.
Thank you so much. We sincerely appreciate it. So we have so much ground I feel like to cover with you. And I want to remind people that in your position, you are responsible for the top level, the top tier of what's happening. So congratulations on your appointment and welcome to the Cold Hard Truth. But you also deal with what some may say is the day-to-day mundane stuff. You get it all. And we're going to break down what some of your responsibilities are this morning and what your vision is for CBC in terms of overall improvements. So CBC is one of those agencies that is on the front line. In fact, I would dare say that, you know, when people come in to the Cayman Islands for the very first time, your officers are going to be some of the very first people that are seen by visitors, residents, and Caymanians alike. How important is CBC to the overall vision and operations of the Cayman Islands? Basically, it touches every aspect of our lives.
Well, Sandra, you said it at the beginning of what you were saying. We are so important that we are most times the first individuals that members of the traveling public see.
Mm-hmm.
And that is critical to our operation because we always hear individuals say, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to make sure that we understand that concept. We have a crucial responsibility. We have a mix of not only facilitating legitimate trade and travel, but also to make sure that we conduct border security and the protection of our national interests through our gateway in the terms of coming through the airports and seaport. So
Mm-hmm.
our officers need to be equipped with the relevant training, resources, and tools basically to get the work done. And not only that, but we're going to talk a little bit more about this as well in the terms of customer service.
Mm-hmm.
We are a public service. And unless we have that at the forefront of our mind, we could tend sometime to maybe go off in the wrong direction and become overzealous. So I just want to make sure that I get the opportunity to explain that we are about making sure that customer service is one of those key things that we want to make sure that we do because it doesn't get in the way of the fact that we conduct our duties the right way, but customer service have to be at the forefront because it's not about taking anything personal. It's about discharging our lawful duties.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And we will get to some of the questions that come out as a result of that. So I do want to remind people that, we've got some questions here for Mr. Marlon. We don't, as is customary on this program, we don't provide questions in advance to our guests. We expect them to be able to answer those questions. And that also means that the phone lines are open for you all to participate in this process as well. I do want us to get through some of the questions before we get to sort of the open mic segments. If you guys will permit me to do that, that would be fantastic. Just this morning, as I was getting prepared for the show, I had someone message me and say, Sandy, please ask Mr. Bodden what is going on with is it called Coles, COLS system? Because it's down again. Now, I know this system has been having some growing pains. So perhaps we start there with a view of you telling us what has been happening. And are you aware that it appears to be having some issues again in the last 24 hours?
Yes, I am aware. And like anything in another system, Sandra, we were going to have some technical issues. I mean, just before we started the show, you was having some technical issues.
Yeah.
Right? And
Absolutely.
that's the reality of the whole business that we are in. But it's not lost on us the disruption that I can cause. And we have individuals working in the background regularly to make sure that we don't have this type of disruption. And we do apologize to our customers for having to encounter those issues. But it's not anything that we are deliberately doing. We are trying to improve the system. And sometimes if we're improving the system, we get these growing pains. So again, it's very regrettable that that has happened, but we are working assiduously to make sure that we get our systems up and running because we want to provide a better service. And sometimes when we do that, other things get affected. So again, like I said, I do apologize for those disruptions, but it's all about taking us in the right direction and making sure that we move forward to make it more efficient. We listen to the public, and the public says to us, your system that you have is helpful, but it's a little difficult to navigate. And as we continue to, professionalize our system and make it easier for, our customers to use the system, we're going to have these issues. But we encourage the public to give us feedback, but also, give us the patience that is deserving, that we can help to remedy these issues whenever it happens.
Now, I know the last time you had an issue, there was a specific reason why, which your technical team discovered, and that was rectified. Is this a different issue now that's occurring with the system?
Yes, it's totally different, but that was quickly remedied on this occasion. But the previous issue was a little bit more technical. We had to involve a lot more technical persons in that space in order to remedy that problem. But this particular issue is new, but it has been remedied.
So, someone says that when Coles is down, it can lead to a day or two of delayed processing. And if they have port fees accumulating, do you have to pay more to port? There needs to be a way to get it submitted / processed, even if the system is down. So, just explain to us, because a lot of us don't necessarily use Coles, but how do you handle these outages and the potential fees that people are accruing?
CBC does not operate on its own. We have a lot of stakeholders, a lot of partners that we are involved with. And whenever we have this type of situation, we know that inevitably someone or some other organization will be impacted. So we work very close with the Cayman Islands Port Authority, and we notify the Port Authority that we're having these issues, and we ask them for discretion, and they are very cooperative and assist individuals. We send them communication, give them the justification why we are requesting them to assist us, and the customer then is actually given that discretion because it was not none of their fault.
Okay, very good. All right. So let's talk about your upward mobility, if you will. So you were promoted within the organization, and I know a number of years ago we had a broader. I guess there's a how would I best describe this? There was an amalgamation of the agencies, right? So we had sort of immigration and border control, and then there was it split. We had WORC, we had CBC that was formed. And so in many respects, CBC as a singular entity is relatively new, I would say. And you were recruited following an open recruitment process. What do you think or believe distinguish you as the right person for this role?
Well, I'll say it like this, Sandra. People see you better than you see yourself. You just got to continue to do your work, keep current with the state of affairs, be objective. I never do my work with the view of being promoted. I do my work with the view of being effective, being the best I can be at whatever I do. And those others that actually see your performance and see that it's genuine and sincere will make the decision as to whether or not you're the right person to move the organization in the direction that they strategically they want to see the department or organization moving. So for me, yes, I was a part of Legacy Customs, and
Right.
then I was actually subsumed into the CBC, which is a fusion of the customs, Legacy Customs, and Legacy Immigration, which then born was the Cayman Islands Customs and Border Control Service. And this space is no stranger to me. However, you can't rest on your laurels to think that because of the fact that you're fusing two units together, it's not going to come with its own challenges. It comes with its challenges because now you're having two different cultures that you have to manage. You got different levels of experience. You got different roles that needs to be understood by individuals. You got new legislation that you have to make sure that others are familiar with. And not only that, but then you got new operations, you got new flights, you got a lot of new things that is actually coming into one space at any one time. And you have to be able to juggle and be professional. The public doesn't want to hear me say, oh, well, we got these new things and you got that and you got this. They want to see that we are efficient and professional and we maintain the level of integrity that takes us in the right direction. That's what the public want.
My apologies. What sort of director can CBC officers and the general public expect you to be?
Well, first of all, a director that will listen, a director that understands that, I haven't just came into this role, I grew with them. So I understand some of the challenges, I understand what it's like, that I give them a call on occasions through some of my line managers and leaders to say, come out of your bed, come to work. And I do that so that they can cause others that come to this island to reach their home safely. That's a significant, selfless type of contribution. And I do understand that the officers on a daily basis face immense pressure, immense frustration because they're human as well.
Right.
And I also do understand that they will need requisite training, they will need assistance, they will need to get a break, they would need to be able to understand the trends and everything else that goes with it. And most of all, they would need a lot of communication from myself as the director to make sure that they understands what is in my headspace, what's the strategic direction for the organization that will meet the needs of the Cayman Islands public. In addition to that, how I also do that is I make sure that I create an environment for all of my senior team, all of my mid managers, and all of the staff to be able to get the necessary information. Because sometimes silence is so loud that the officers will feel like nothing is happening in the organization. But because I undertake to put those things in place, they see that in truth and fact, there was only a perception of what has been happening or not happening through their eyes. And they now get it firsthand. And we ask our mid managers to push the information downwards and to be able to let their staff know and understand that we are not silent and things are actually happening and we are listening to them and we're showing them how we are listening to them. And that is the kind of director that they must expect that they will see. Again, behind the nice, calm way that I operate is a very serious Marlon Bodden. If we don't take our job seriously, then, people will see it as a joke. So from the top down and from the bottom up is what I want. I want all of us to realize that when we step out into the public domain, we are under, I don't want to say watch, but the public has seen us and they want to see a professional organization because the Cayman Islands government invests a lot of money in the Customs and Border Control Service. We are our first line of defense. We started off with that conversation. And we are the officers in most occasions that they first see. And irrespective of whether it's on the other side in the terms of the person have to be arrested and taken into custody, we still have to be professional with what we do.
Very good. All right. What are your three main priorities for CBC during the first year as director?
Well, first things first. CBC have millions of dollars worth of equipment. We got millions of dollars of scanners. We got, like our K9s and all that kind of stuff. But our people is most important. The first couple of months into a year is going to be focused on people leadership, not management. I've made a clear distinction to my team. Management is about managing things, due to rosters, equipment, vehicle fleet, managing things. We want to lead people. We have to treat people as people, human beings, understand their strengths, understand their opportunities to be able to learn and develop and grow. We all have different levels of experience. We all have different ways that we will do things, but we got one objective. But we cannot expect our people to focus on those objectives if they don't know what those objectives are. So for me, it's going to be people focus at the first going off, serious governance, making sure that they understand the direction of travel as it relates to governance.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, is going to be supporting them, not only making sure that they get the training and all the rest that goes with it, but giving them that support to let them know that if they are encountered with any particular challenge, they know that they have a shoulder to lean on to get advice. It's for that reason why we have in a strategic way, in our strategic organization and space, we have actually put mechanisms in place now where officers can call on us at odd hours, odd times to be able to get some sort of assistance or advice and guidance on how to deal with issues. They are not on their own. So that support is very important for the staff to have. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier about the issue of the cultures coming together. We got to build a culture that is professional and accountable. I have to be accountable for what I do as the director. Therefore, they have to be accountable for their rules and making sure that their job descriptions are being fulfilled. Our integrity and responsible for effectively communicating with their teams to make sure not only that I pass information to them, but they pass information to their teams. And of course, those things drive public confidence within us as a CBC. And that is another thing that we want to make sure that we drive. The other thing is our partnerships. As I mentioned earlier, CBC is one of those organizations that work with a lot of stakeholders. We have the airlines, we have the cruise operators, we have shipping agents, we have the custom brokers, the freight forwarders, we got airport and port authorities, and we got tourism partners. You know, we got different businesses, and that's what we're about, the facilitation. That's the customer service side of our business that we look at. And then, of course, the more significant and important side is the national security, the security of our borders. So they are the things that I will be focusing in the first couple of months to make sure that we all understand that direction of travel and that we are now ready to move in the direction. I constantly remind my staff that we always hear the statement that the Cayman Islands is the island that time forgot. I don't agree with that. I always remind my staff that we are used to going to the world. We get on a flight, we travel, we go to Europe, we go to North America, all about. Now we got to get used to the world coming to us. We got to be prepared for that. That is the direction of travel and understanding that I want my team to understand.
Wow. Wow. Fantastic. All right. First of all, it occurred to me that there might still be some listeners who don't fully understand. So we're going to take a little step back, what it is that CBC does. So let's go through the areas of responsibility. Again, this is legislation, folks. As we explained earlier, there was some readjusting of agencies. New agencies were formed. People crossed over from one agency to the next. So let's talk about exactly what CBC is responsible for.
Right. Okay. So I'll break it down into, I guess, like about maybe 4 different areas. Right. The key is border security. Right. We are responsible for border security. In the context, for example, we look at threats that will be affecting that. For example, illegal drugs, firearms, and other prohibited items, undeclared or improperly declared goods, financial or organized crimes, and document and identity fraud, things like unlawful entry and emerging transnational threats is pretty much the key areas of the issue of border security that we deal with as one of our main areas. We move or is moving or has moved into an intelligence-led organization. And the most I would say in that space is that we are constantly risk assessing and carrying out threat assessments to make sure that our national security components are not in any way compromised. Then the other thing, as I mentioned, is that, of course, the business side of it, where we facilitate legitimate trade and travel, where we make sure that the businesses, some of which I mentioned in terms of our stakeholders, are large supermarket chains and so on, they can continue to do or carry out their responsibilities by putting food on our shelves and everything else that goes with it, with the least amount of disruption, while we continue to still be efficient in that space. During training, we use what is referred to as scenario-based training, and we write a lot of those type of training scenarios, basically in the terms of making sure that the individuals that are in training understands that they will be trained based on complaints that we received, based on how we do business as an organization, and also that they must understand the impact of them not doing their job. I'll give you an example. One of our scenarios were that we had cause to hold up a 40-foot container that arrived on one of our ships that only contained Pampers for babies. And we have that container held up for a minimum of 2 days. They are to write down all of their perceived impacts of doing that. And I can tell you, Sandra, and the listening audience, they didn't realize just by one container the significant amount of impact that it was. One of the questions that one of the trainees asked was, "Sir, about how many babies are in the Cayman Islands?" Now, just like you having a laugh, with this, I had a laugh the same way. Because if we sit back a couple of seconds and think about the amount of babies that is in this island that will need those Pampers, we will see the impact of just one simple scenario such as that. And that's just one opportunity for us to give an idea of the vast amount of challenges that we will have to make sure that we continue to facilitate trade.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Just by way of an example.
Yes.
Right?
A simple but pertinent example, nonetheless. So CBC, folks, just to make sure we understand, border control is obviously probably its most important role. Lawful travel and trade. So oftentimes when we think of CBC, we're just thinking of the airport, but it's not just the airport. I know you guys will be involved with other agencies and cross-agency operations, and that becomes an important role, an important aspect of what you do in terms of enforcement and protecting the Cayman Islands. Revenue collection and national security. Again, very, very important. I always think to myself that CBC might be one of the few government agencies that actually makes money, that holds its own in that department. And that's a very, very important role. You know, when I come through the airport and I try to have all my receipts and stuff together, I see there's two poor little cashiers working, and I'm going to come to them because I think some flights you might need more than two, but they're there working and processing payments and, issuing receipts and, but that is just one location. So let's talk about the different locations that you have. There's the main airport. That's one port of entry. Is that the most busy port of entry in terms of, or would it actually be the cruise ships along with the Port Authority there?
Well, if we speak in the context of constant, it would
Yes.
be the Owen Roberts International Airport. That's the
Okay.
most constant. But the ports, yeah, you get an onslaught when you have a number of cruise ships coming at any one time, because you get a lot of individuals, basically come into one space at the Georgetown port.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a number of different departments, yes, as you rightfully mentioned, and
Mm-hmm.
we are spread quite across the island, and we carry our significant roles. I mentioned that earlier. I mean, I cannot overstate the importance of what my officers does. And I continue to praise them on a daily basis. They do exceptional jobs. I mean, you just identified the airport. I mean, you were talking about on sometimes on a Saturday, we have 23 to 30, sometimes more than that, depending on the season, international flights with significant flight loads that is commerged, and I sat a couple of days ago, just observe, and I was actually jotting down the time in between is like almost like a 15-minute in between 10:30 and around 2:30 in the afternoon. Almost every 15 minutes, the flight is landing. That's a significant responsibility for our team, and
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, they get tired. Their concentration could be lost, and that it might be at that critical point. So we have to manage all of those things at the same time while facilitating legitimate travel. And of course, to be in a position where we identify the threats from persons who don't intend to come to the Cayman Islands for legitimate purposes.
Mm-hmm.
They are people that we pay attention on. They may be in the minority, but they can
Yes.
cause the most impact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, that's the kind of thing. We're serious on the prohibited and restricted goods space. We want to make sure that, we do our part. And as I mentioned previously, if we miss a lot of this, it can translate into some serious issues for our cousin organization, RCIPs,
Mm-hmm.
and they can, have some serious issues because we are heavily dependent on imports. And
Yes.
we got to make sure that when we do allow imports to come in, that within that legitimate space, individuals or bad actors, as we refer to them, don't utilize that opportunity to bring in their loot to cause
Mm-hmm.
disruption to our national security space.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you so much for that reminder. So CBC plays, folks, again, a very, very important role. What weaknesses within CBC are you prepared to acknowledge publicly, and how do you intend to address those?
Well, I will say it like this. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
technology. Technology is not changing by the year anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing by the day now.
Mm-hmm.
Because the harsh reality is that businesses are going into business to make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they gotta not make the lifespan of certain technologies be that long anymore. So one of our weaknesses is making sure, and I don't necessarily say it's a weakness, but we have to recognize it as we don't control it, and that is to be able to keep up with the technology that a lot of others are basically used to. But we have recognized in a lot of space, for example, we still operate the hard card, the paper declaration cards, which we are
Mm-hmm.
actually soon be able to pass on some well welcomed information and news to the public, but I won't go into that at the moment. But we
Mm-hmm.
recognize those things where we're trying to make travel and everything else far more easier for our customers coming through the ports.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, modernizing the agency and keeping up, and I suppose the keeping up has an element of not just keeping up with systems that make CBC, border control, travel, revenue collection, national security more efficient, but also keeping up with the methodologies that, as you say, although it might be a small portion of travelers, but that the criminals are using to avoid detection, whether it's unlawful and illegal contraband, or, anything else that they might be trying to do, evading customs duty. It's a matter of trying to keep up with all of these things. And I suppose that's always a bit of a cat and mouse chase. Your officers, I do want to talk about that a little bit, because your officers in the last several years have really been doing, in my honest opinion, a phenomenal job catching some of these persons. And I always say, we only see what they catch, but obviously we don't know what they don't catch, right? And we don't see what is potentially still getting through. But there have been some very, very high profile cases with illicit drugs, some of them like fentanyl convictions, very, very serious drugs that could do immense damage to the country as a whole. What would you say to the public about the job that your officers have been doing, and quite frankly, that they continue to do with trying to find, illicit drugs, money, perhaps even money laundering? But like I said, there have been a number of significant and high-profile cases where people's lives have literally been saved because your officers have found, a stash of fentanyl, meth, whatever the case may be.
My officers, Sandra, to be honest with you, they are highly trained in searching. We have their technology, which helps us to speed up the way that we search. But nothing beats a well-trained officer to do their job, because we can use the technology to detect, but at the end of the day, it needs to be translated into, writing, into a file, into a court, that kind of thing. It takes a human being to do that. So my officers are significantly trained in that space to search and look, and I can tell you this, if it's there, they can find it. I asked a few of them a couple of days ago, give me some ideas where I can hide some stuff that you guys won't find it. And I had to smile at what one of them said. One of them said, hide it in the sky. That goes to show you that they are determined to make sure that if they see an anomaly as a result of something, or they have cause to search an item, they're going to do it professionally, and they are going to do it based on their training, and they're going to find it if it's there. So for me, training is big on my agenda. Continue to keep those officers upskilled, give them the resources, the training, and the tools to do their work, and we will be celebrating our successes in the terms of making sure that the bad actors doesn't cause any disruption to our national security. You mentioned about the types of, category A, serious drugs and stuff like that, and the officers are human. They are exposed to this on a daily basis. And if we don't keep them up to date, they could ultimately expose themselves to something that, it pains my heart to have to, to say that something happens to one of my staff. So for me, training is big. Officer safety is big on my agenda. I wouldn't want to say to any parent and a spouse and a loved one that, I'm sorry that, we didn't do this, and your loved one has passed as a result. I don't want to be in this chair to have to do that. I really don't want to. So I want to do my best to train the officers properly, give them the opportunities to feel professional. And not only that, I am a strong believer that the best advertisement is a satisfied customer. If we do our jobs professionally and get that done, we wouldn't have enough room for recruitment, because people are going to petition to want to join CBC. And that is one of the legacies that I would like to leave before I leave this chair, that individuals want to come to work to CBC because we are a professional organization, believe in doing our work professionally, and not only doing our work professionally, but the type of public service that we deliver is next to none. And a lot of our regional custom services would like us to tell them how we do business. That is a legacy I would like to leave behind.
Yes. How do you balance the need to protect sensitive operational information with the public's rights to transparency and accountability?
Well, the thing about it is there's a right to know and there's a need to know. There's occasions when we definitely need to tell the public, when their best interests need to be protected. And then there's occasions where we have to remain silent on issues because there's a wider interest that must be protected. And that balance is about empathizing with the public, that we can't tell you at this, but we can assure them that we continue to evaluate and assess risk, and we will make sure that their interest is protected. So, because we have done our jobs the right way and they have seen that, it drives public confidence, and they will be able to trust our judgment if we are not able to go into details and tell them anything.
And I suppose that your successful conviction rate, when we see things going through the courts and then some of the details emerge as a result of that, I think that that also supports and speaks volumes to why at the early stage of an investigation, Customs, CBC might not always be in a position to provide a whole lot of information. But when the details come out, as they say, it's either going to come out in the wash or in the rinse, right? When those details start to emerge, we then get an understanding of precisely what CBC was working on behind the scenes and why there might have been some degree of investigative sensitivity, towards the public, if you will. Here at CMR, everybody wants the source as it's happening, when it's happening. And we have those demands on us as a media house, but we also do appreciate from an agency perspective that both the police, CBC, and other enforcement agencies don't always have the ability to make public statements on what's going on and what's happening. Let me talk about a little bit your officers. What enforcement powers do they have? Because this is another area that I think people are a little bit confused about. So CBC officers actually have policing and arresting powers. So tell us how that works.
Well, the Customs and Border Control Act clearly tells us under Section 9 that we have the same rights, privileges, and so on as a police officer when on duty. So we actually can actually apply any law that comes into our space. We do have a remit that we operating in that space, but we do have the opportunity as well to prosecute under different legislations and so on. And again, I'll go back to the issue of training. And this is the culture change that we're talking about, to make sure that the officers understand that it's not about always protecting and collecting government revenue or facilitating legitimate trade and so on, but we have these other collateral roles that we have to deal with. For example, let's think about our terrorism act that we have here. We have to, when you heard me talking about national security and so on, this is about, making sure that officers understand that we have a role to play in that space as well. Sanctions, for example, when the UK sanctioned other organizations and people, how we as CBC officers have to deal with that. We know that there's certain countries that we can't trade with. Some of those are like North Korea and those other places and so on. We have to make sure that our officers are well equipped with that information, because it's reasons for it. We may not see the bigger picture per se, but on a more localized level, we are in the space to make sure that we advise the staff that they can bring to our attention anything that they see is not necessarily right, so that we can move it forward. I mentioned earlier about the way that we are doing business, constantly assessing threats. And that is what we're talking about. That's the culture change to not only do our jobs in a nice, professional, smooth way, but in a way that individuals may think that we are not as alert as they would think, because we are not being that obviously aggressive, but we are being smart with the way that we do business.
All right, very good. We're going to start to get to some of our listener questions here in a second. So, folks, know that I'm seeing your questions, and we're going to organize those here for Mr. Bodden to respond to those. Let's talk a little bit about staff morale and leadership. You identified earlier a people first leadership approach as one of the central ways that you will be moving the organization forward. And you talked about, what that means for your senior managers, your mid-level managers, more on the frontline officers. How would this people first approach improve their lives and impact them?
Okay, one of the key things to me as a leader is that you must be visible, and you must also be not only visible but accessible. We have a rank structure within the Customs and Border Control Service. You only have one director, you have 5 deputy directors, and then below those are supervisors and assistant directors, and so on. It comes cascades down. If we do not make sure that we inform our team equally with the information that they need to know to get their job done, is going to impact their morale, because they are not going to feel a part of this organization. We have to keep them informed, and we cannot operate on the basis of feeling, well, I don't trust Marlon, so I ain't gonna say this. Miss Sandra, if I don't trust you, if I can't tell you something that's confidential and you use that or misuse that information, there are consequences. We got rule books that we can apply the rules to those individuals. But we can't operate on that thought process, say, well, I can't do this. Well, if that's the case, then you tell them what they need to know. But don't starve them with information that they can't get their jobs done, because you are just as bad as that person then. So morale is key to me, and I constantly encourage staff to call and speak to us. There got to be someone in the organization that they feel comfortable with to talk to us, whatever it is that is affecting them. But our job as strategic leaders is to make sure that we create that environment for them to be able to talk to us, and we respond. Now, one of the things, and I've actually spoken to my senior leadership team in relation to this, that I will be doing, every 3 months thereabouts, is I'm going to have, some people refer to them as town hall meetings, where I, as the director, like what we're doing now, speak to my team through Zoom. We're not always able to be in a position to bring everybody under one roof and talk to them from a stage and behind a podium. We are not in a position to do that, because the organization must continue operational and so on. But I can at least utilize technology, and officers that are off or on, they are in a position where they can actually hear me, and I'm reporting to them on things that are important to them. And and you'll realize that they are speaking out. And for me personally, as a leader, I don't care how you speak. I want you to tell me what is on your mind. I will deduce from that. If I need to speak to you about your delivery, I know how to deal with that. Sometimes we make the delivery get in the way of the information that will help us to move. And I don't always want people to focus on that. because it can make us not get the kind of information that we need to do our job.
Okay. All right. Staff, you've had some employees, unfortunately, who have been placed in the news for a variety of different criminal offenses and activities. And of course, this always makes, and I try to stress this, to any agency and any civil servant, right? I suppose you're only as good as your weakest link. And so these individuals will, although what they did might not have even been done on the job, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do specifically with their remit as, an officer or a manager. It still reflects negatively on the organization. And you've had a couple high profile cases. We don't need to go into any details, but some of them even remain before the courts as we speak. How do you address those, what's the word I'm looking for, black marks, if you will, on the organization?
Well, we constantly remind our staff about integrity issues, right? I mentioned about public trust. We remind our staff that we have to make sure that we operate with the rule book in mind. And whatever we do have to stand up to scrutiny, because you never know, somebody would want to see what you have. Um, I am not gonna, and I know that you're not suggesting this, speak about matters that are before the court, because we understand that sub judice aspect of it. But at the same time, we are not afraid to deal with our own, right? If our own misbehaves, there are consequences to the whole thing. It's unfortunate. It will cause, a little ripple within the organization, but we should take some of these circumstances and realize that we must continue on the straight and narrow rather than find ourselves, within the law courts because we didn't follow the rule book and whatnot. It's for that reason why we have a professional standards unit in place that actually looks at all of these things. If it's a conduct issue within the organization, it goes to our professional standards unit, and those officers will conduct investigations, and then it goes to, through the channels up to the director level if the matter is that significantly serious to deal with. And then if it's criminal, then of course we are not afraid to refer these matters to the police department or the anti-corruption unit for that sake, if that is where it needs to go. But officers are constantly reminded, as recent as yesterday, I reminded the officers that, bear in mind that whatever you do, there's accountability behind the whole thing. So if you want to go and take the chance, take the risk, then, you have to realize that you have to face the natural consequences of your action. So we do remind them about it. It's not one of those areas that any leader would want to have to deal with, but that's a part of your job. You have to deal with it, and I have to stand that same scrutiny. If I don't carry out my job as the director, I have to answer to the ministry, and that's the way that it is. Somebody have to answer to somebody. So the key, the rule book is there. You just follow the rule book, and everybody's happy thereafter. That's how I see it.
What concerns have officers raised with you, if any, regarding morale, workload, staffing, equipment, or just their general working conditions? Because, without staff that have the tools that they need, that are happy in the job, that are confident in their roles, your agency or any agency can't operate as effectively and as efficiently as they should be. So since it's only been a short period of time that you've taken over the helms, but you were obviously already in the organization, so you might be very well aware of staff concerns. Have you heard anything that now, as the organizational leader, will be, giving you thought to how you can improve the system regarding morale, workload, staffing, equipment, or working conditions?
Yes, a lot of the staff mentioned about resources in the terms of additional staff. But we have reassured them that we have to go through processes in
Mm-hmm.
order to bring staff on board. It is not one of those things that you can just wake up tomorrow morning and employ someone. There's a process that has to be undertaken, and they understand that. Again, like I say, is when they get the information that they needs to know what is happening, is when they are understood and they understand us. I think because we were not as open, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
not as informative, then they naturally, understandably, would think that nothing is being done. But I'm quite sure that I've actually paved the way for us to move in that direction. So
Mm-hmm.
staffing was one of them, those areas, limited staff in their space. The others was rotations, moving around different areas within the department. And my senior leadership team is well versed with that. We have actually taken that on, and we are actually, making sure we are actually going through that process as we speak. Another thing that was mentioned was issues of promotions. You know, um, and I explained to them we don't give away promotions. We have to be very careful when we promote an individual. We have to promote the right person to get the job done. They understand that there's a process that have to be undertaken. They sometimes feel like it's taking a little longer than usual, and that's understandable. But most of the issues, like I said, is about letting them know the process and letting them know the timing of the process. And
Mm-hmm.
that is some of the feedback that I've been receiving since taking on the chair in July.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, very good. So based on that, I can assume then that in your opinion, your current staffing levels are probably not adequate to meet the demands that are that have been created by Cayman's growing population, increase in tourism numbers, and the large volume now that we're seeing of imports.
Yeah, well, I would say that, I wouldn't say that is altogether one particular thing of adequate. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that is a component. And we would always have that great for a better description to say that you would need more resources. It is how we deploy the staff.
Mm-hmm.
I had mentioned earlier, it's all about risk assessments and threat assessments. The areas that are higher risk and threat that we are seeing is where we're going to make sure that we move the resources in that area while we are going through the process of recruitment to backfill in those areas where we need numbers that are efficient to carry out the job. But like I said, it's not only about providing the numbers, but we want to make sure that we have the officers with the right skills to undertake to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we would be recruiting liability, and that's a dangerous way to operate. Just to say that we have X amount of staff and we employ X amount of staff, that's not what this is about. It's about making sure we have the right staff to do the right job.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, we're going to take some time now to invite your comments. We still have more questions, but of course, this show is all about audience participation. So 936-2626 is a telephone number. And we're also going to go ahead and put up some of your comments now on the screen as well that have been coming in. So thank you guys so much for those. Let's see, we've got this listener who's been keenly listening to the program, and they have a few comments that they would like to share. They said, can you please ask Mr. Marlon about fingerprint entering the island? Now, I know that this is obviously a decision that is above your pay grade, but no doubt you are in conversations with the government. Are we any closer to getting a fingerprinting system that you are aware of?
Well, that's I don't want to say a sensitive matter, but this is a matter under discussion as we speak. And as soon as I am given the authorization to commit in that regard, I will definitely do. But we do recognize the importance of needing that kind of resource.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. The listener goes on to say, Miss Sandra, can you ask him if he plans to go to the government and ask them to make the airport a 24-hour airport in an effort to space out flights So I'm not so sure that you have that much influence, but 24-hour airport. Wow. The cost of running a 24-hour airport, I wonder if people understand what that takes.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is what segregation of duties is all about, right? Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
got the airports authority and the civil aviation authority and of course all the stakeholders to actually deal with that. I'm quite sure that they will address that type of question when they see the need, and their advisors and so on will definitely give them the advice and guidance in that space.
Mm-hmm.
But I do appreciate. I think that the listener is actually more or less pointing towards the fact that would ease up that little small all that pressure in that small window
Mm-hmm.
of landing and so on with the aircraft. So I think that that's basically what they're
Yeah.
trying to assist us to think about. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite sure that I don't have no problem putting it in the space and say, well, this is one thing that was raised, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
it'll take its own natural way to wiggle through the space.
Mm-hmm. And we
Mhm.
have to remember that even if Cayman Airport is open 24 hours, that doesn't mean that other airports or other airlines even would be sending people at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to travel into our beautiful island. So there's always that consideration, right? Like we might be open and willing to accept the load, but you have to know that on the other end, I don't know who wants to fly to Paradise and come in at 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning. Probably not that many people. And then there's a trickle down effect of having to have taxi drivers operating 24/7, hotels checking people in at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a lot of elements to that. And you'd be surprised how the Cayman, especially the tourism industry, has evolved to a point where, you know, tourism workers don't want to be stressed 24/7. That's not why they get into that business. They like sort of the hours of, normally by 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, things are winding down for taxi drivers. They don't necessarily have to be at the airports all hours of the night and so forth. So lots more to consider, I think, when it comes to operating a 24-hour airport that might initially meet the eye. Next point, national security is important. And with all of these flights crammed, sometimes we miss something. So, do you think that expanding the airport hours would allow your officers to be more vigilant when it comes to national security when you don't have, 1 or 2 flights coming in? I know that Sunday, there is a point on Sunday where the last Miami flight and then the Jamaica flight, although they are spaced out a little bit because of delays that sometimes are inevitable at the airports overseas, what you'll have is those flights converging on the Owen Roberts International Airport at the exact same time. And so maybe it's that sort of situation that this person is thinking about when you have that happen. But delays are inevitable. And I know that, unfortunately, there's probably very little you can do to stop those. So, what are your thoughts on when you have the potential of several hundred people trying to be processed by your customs officers at any given time?
Right. This is where we share information. We can't do border security on our own. It's just like me. I may be the director of CBC,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to use my team in order to be successful. And it's the same process at the airport, at the seaport. We have to share information with our partners. Not everyone that actually travels in that space are here for some unlawful purpose. And we're gonna miss. We're gonna miss individuals. Sometimes we find them after they have departed. And this is what having domestic and international cooperation is all about. Making sure that we share our information with our partners. Because if they came, did what they had to do, and left before we find out, water under the bridge, but all is not lost. Notify our international partners. This is what we find, share the information with them, and we can continue. So that is the way that we go about dealing with those things. We're working smarter,
Mm-hmm.
not trying to, you know, say do 100% searching or do
Mm-hmm.
100% on everything that comes into the island. That is impossible to do. That's why I keep saying it's all about risk assessing,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we look, listen, learn, follow trending information that is passed on to us, and we can carry on with it because we are facilitating legitimate trade and travel,
Mm-hmm.
and we are making sure that we pay attention to those threats that can in some way impede our national security. But going 100% on an individual is not going to solve it. It is
Mm-hmm.
about making sure that we study what we're supposed to do, learn what we do, look at the trends, look at what's happening in our space, and then we apply our skills and knowledge and experience to making sure that we disrupt any of those types of behaviors that is unacceptable to us.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Okay. We have another comment here. Let's read some that are in the chat. Anthony and others are paying close attention. Hey, Paul, he's joining us from Bermuda this morning. So good to see you. He says, blessed Thursday from the 441. Island Pearl says, Auntie, I want to understand what system does CBC use to determine if someone should be inspected or not. It's very time consuming, annoying, and I'm flagged every time. And my staff are always, and my stuff is always in order. So you talk about risk profiling, but there's also an element of just random checks that has to happen. So no one, I suppose, is immune from the law. And I wonder, Island Pearl, is that at the airport? You didn't specify when you say about someone should be inspected. Is that at another port of entry? Is that goods that are being brought in as a company? I think a little bit more information could have been useful. But as Mr. Bodden just said, there is risk profiling, and then there's just random checks. Like nobody's immune, I suppose, from random checks, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I understand that persons would love for us to tell them how we go about doing our business. That's not gonna happen.
Mm.
That's not gonna happen. We don't do business like that. Might as well we just walk out into the
Yeah.
public and say, yeah, I'm law enforcement, so avoid me so you can go to the next side of the room and do what
Uh-huh.
you need to do. That's not gonna happen. And we don't discuss operational strategies, with how we go about doing stuff. And I'll just say this in a little parable. People normally brush their teeth when they go into the dentist, right?
Mm.
That's normal what happens. So we only get complaints from those individuals that have been given a secondary check. Individuals that
Mm-hmm.
actually go and do their job and they present their papers. As a matter of fact, some persons without having to be asked by an officer
Mm-hmm.
to present their documentation for stuff that they purchase. They voluntarily just do it. We inspect
Mm-hmm.
it, we verify, and off the person go. That is the way that the business operates. Be willing, ready, and able to cooperate with us, and
Mm-hmm.
out through the door. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the way that it is. If
Mm-hmm.
an officer goes and becomes overzealous and does
Yes.
things that will not be in the right way, we encourage individuals to report those things to us. Our
Mm-hmm.
professional standards will review it. And if there's something that the officer didn't do in the terms of following procedures, those officers will be dealt with accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is the reason why we have it.
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, just as a traveler myself, I travel, I guess a fair amount, and I'm always bringing stuff in. My husband says I spend too much time on Amazon. Well, that's debatable. Um, but, I do the same thing. Like when I come, I make sure I have my receipts. In fact, before I even leave Cayman now, because if I'm in a hotel and stuff, I might not have easy access to a printer. I know I'm going to pick up certain items, right? So I just print off my receipts before I leave Cayman, put them in my travel folder, and I have them ready. And there are times that I'm still within my limit, but I still go through the line. And because I have these oversized black duffel bags, right? Which when it comes to traveling, boy, your suitcases get thrown around so much that over the years, the thicker duffel bags have really worked well protecting the items that I purchase, but they are really thick. And despite whatever is in it, whether it's full or not, it looks like I'm coming back loaded. So I always say the impression is I have a lot of stuff, whether I do or not. So I just have my receipts ready. I hand it to the customs officer. I say, I believe I'm within my limit, but you're free to check it. Here's the receipts. If you want to go through the bag and cross-reference, and that's fine. And I've had very little issues, over the years. There was one overzealous young lady, probably about a year ago, and I haven't. The funny thing is, I've never seen her at the airport before that day, and I haven't seen her since then. So I think she was someone who was pulled in from another area and just, was going a bit overboard. But you're going to have that happen. And when I contemplate and consider how much traveling I do, and over the years, how few poor experiences I've had, I think, to say that it's certainly in the minority would be an accurate statement. But Mr. Marlon, the bad experiences always stand out in our head. We can have 1,000 good experiences and different experiences where nothing ever happened, but you let someone have one bad experience. And from a customer service training perspective, which I've done for in my past life for many, many years, it takes something like 12 subsequent good experiences for a person to get one bad experience out of their head, which just demonstrates the need for good customer service. And I hope that all of our frontline staff, whether it's, CBC, Border Control, WRC, anyone who works with customers, licensing departments, and so on, that they remember that. They remember the need to give people professional, efficient, and, with a smile, customer service, because the opposite really has a negative imprint on their brains for a really long period of time. Mr. Anthony, good morning, sir. He says, will Mr. Bodden's confirmation create a shortage of Caymanian manpower with the other law enforcement agencies, RCIPS, as what happened previously? Better work environment, less expat challenges, better leadership, better succession planning. Just look who's around Kurt at the recent public meeting, not a Caymanian in sight. So just to be clear, Anthony, he was already in CBC. So they weren't taking him from anywhere else. But I'm also going to challenge you, Anthony, when you say that there was not a Caymanian in sight with Mr. Kurt Walton, because as I recall, last week, I think it was, while I was on holiday, I'm pretty sure I saw Renee post up a story that there were some promotions at the RCIPS, and that included Mr. Brad Ebanks, who's a Caymanian. So I'm not sure how you say there's not a Caymanian inside. I'm just trying to double check. So this was just, yes, August the 3rd, RCIP announces new deputy commissioner and acting deputy commissioner. So that's only two individuals. And one of those two is a Caymanian. So come on now, let's make sure we're at least getting it accurate if we're going to try to make a point of it. Let me just show you the picture here, just in case you may have misread the story. There it is. See Mr. Brad standing right there? And he's about as Caymanian as you can get. So again, he has now been appointed as, let me see here now. So let's see here. Mr. Robert Atkin, he's Deputy Commissioner of Police, succeeding Anthony Ennis, who retired after 45 years of service. And then at the same time, Brad Ebanks has been appointed Acting Assistant Commissioner of Police. Both appointments took effect on August the 1st. And you see them in this photo here, standing up with Mr. Kurt Walton, as well as the governor, Madam Governor Owen. All right, we got a caller in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Bodden.
Good morning.
Congratulations for you, Jen. And Sandy.
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
let I get up now. Don't you set Mr. Bodden on me now, because when I come in home, I always dragging my bag and pan. I'm not working anywhere. And if you go down the house, I have nothing to put on left there. Everything is given away. So don't you call him down on me now.
What?
But I always give you the change. I always tell them, come to the airport with so much. Because
Listen,
sometimes I don't buy in stores. So don't you ever start and say, Mr. Bodden down on me. Say, look out for me.
Sounds like you're setting them on yourself. You're telling them you're coming loaded.
Every
So-
time I come in bag and pan, and if you go down the outside, don't even have nothing to put on left down
oh
there.
my gosh. All right, my dear. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You must
So,
take care. I love you all. Love
yes.
you all.
Thank you, Miss
Mr. Borden
Lucille.
look young today. I think Mr. Borden do a little makeup there because he afraid to face you, you know. So he
Oh
put
my
on a
goodness.
little
he's
pressure.
he's looking his best today. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thanks for the
yes, he look
compliment. Thank
young.
you.
He look young. He look really, really young. I was shocked when I see him come on
Oh
the show.
wow.
I
Somebody
said,
else said that, I think, in the chat as well. Thank you, Miss Lucille. Miss Lucille.
okay, love. You all take care now. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye-bye. She's joining
You
us
too.
all the
Bye-bye.
way. All the way from the UK this morning, saying that you're looking really good. But can we confirm the cold hard truth? No makeup or no cosmetic surgeries in order to join me this morning, correct?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I always say, Miss Sandra, when people tell me that, of course, I welcome the comment, but I always say to myself, I keep my mind clear.
Yeah.
That what contributes to the whole thing. You try
Yeah.
to be objective. You got to be careful that you don't take on the world. That'll
Yeah,
make you
stress.
age. That'll make you age. Yeah, so you got to be careful with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Abby says fingerprint and facial scanning on entry to our borders is 20 years overdue. Live Happy says, question, other than the popular items such as drugs, etc., are the officers aware of witchcraft material and things within that category coming in? So, this is an interesting question. So let's broaden the question because I think Cayman still has a lot of laws that are perhaps antiquated. Sometimes they're antiquated and they've never changed, and sometimes they have changed and the general public doesn't know. So this is going to be a weird element of this, but not just witchcraft, but even personal items for adults, like adult toys. I was told, because I think somebody had mentioned one of these women's group that they were looking to buy some on island. I said, when was that allowed? So I was told that there's been some changes in relation to how customs handle these things. And apparently, if it's for personal use, these items are now allowed in. Can you clarify those specific areas of the law for us? First of all, witchcraft items. Are we allowed to bring in, not that I'm looking to do any such thing, but are we allowed to bring in any items that are identified as witchcraft material?
Yeah, the penal code, that's an offense under the Cayman Islands Penal Code. I think it's section 151 under the section of disorderly conduct, right? Where you find having in your possession items that is associated with witchcraft and all of that kind of stuff. But we have actually intercepted individuals who had those type of implements before. And the fact that we never prosecute those individuals doesn't mean that we did not actually deal with confiscated and destroyed subsequent. We have found individuals with books and so on about that kind of stuff and whatnot. And if it's the prohibited or restricted items, then we undertake to deal with that. But again, like I mentioned before, is that we deal with all sorts of different types of issues at the border. And we don't in any way ignore the fact that we have to deal with these things other than drugs and so on. And your second part of the question and expanding the question had to do with sex toys and all that kind of stuff, right? And the thing is that I remember a little while back we had that question posed. Mr. Clifford, retired director at the time, had made a public statement on that. I was actually his deputy at the time as well. And we used to get a lot of calls in relation to that. And we have actually published that. And if you go on our website, you'll probably see the article that is there. If an individual have those things in their possession for personal use, as you rightfully highlighted, that is good and fine. But of course, if you're trading in those type of things now, then it becomes an issue. You have to make sure that you declare, because now you're trading, you're selling to the public, is a commercial undertaking that you're involved in. So then it changes the whole entire picture. But merely possessing that kind of stuff is not illegal.
Okay. So when I hear stories, I've never been to one, so take it with a grain of salt. But I do hear there's a few shops on island that exist. Those shops are still trading in what would be illegal contraband, basically, because they're not supposed to be bringing in such large quantities to make available for sale.
Well, I would hope that they would have declared them and they went through the right declaration process in order for them to pay their requisite duties because they are trading in them. Of course, if we get information that individuals are actually stockpiling those and selling, and they don't have the requisite, license and all of that kind of stuff, then that is something that we would have to look at.
Oh, so you can, let me just clarify what you're saying. You can trade in that as a retail business. You can sell sex toys.
Well,
That's where,
I don't see any law in that. Our legal opinion that we received clearly had notified us that there's nothing, there's no offense against that, being in possession of a sex toy.
Okay. No, I thought for some reason that we still couldn't have those shops here selling them. But I guess if it's not against the law, it's not against the law.
Yeah, I mean, the Department of Commerce and Investment are the authority in the
licensing
terms
body,
of the
yeah.
licensing body for that. And like I said, our responsibility from the Customs and Border perspective is if they bring in those items in bulk, there's no way that they can say that they are being used for personal consumption. Yes, after they are sold to a customer, maybe. But in the terms of bulk, you're trading in them, so you would have to pay the requisite duties and do the declaration. But I've
Okay.
never heard where we had an issue with that. So yeah, but we clarified that. Like I said, Director Clifford, who's retired, he has actually clarified that issue that has actually came to the fore before, and nothing has changed since.
So someone is saying, ask what section of the law that can be found, but you're saying there's nothing in the law that prohibits it.
Right.
So there's not going to be a section per se that addresses it. There's just no prohibition.
Right. We have in our laws under the penal code, we have prohibited publications and all that, but they're dealing
Yes.
with material, books and periodicals and that kind of stuff, but not these digital type of things.
Oh, somebody said it was something that was legally challenged, and they wanting to know if you haven't gone to the 7-Eleven back shop yourself because they were shocked when they went. I mean, listen, Mr. Bodden, every day my listeners teach me something that I don't even know where 7-Eleven is, but I guess as of today, they're going to tell me about the store across from 7-Eleven. My apologies. And they have a whole back room with anything you can think of. I went in just to see, so they say, if it was real, and OMG. Okay, then. Wow, what a hot mess. All right, John LaRue says the duty-free amount is now $800, correct? $1,000 in December. So let's just clarify, because this was a recent legislative change, that the duty amount has increased. And it's during the summer months. Is it 2 months in the summer? What period in the summer?
I can't remember right offhand, but I know it's went up to 800, to be honest, Sandra.
Yeah, I'll clarify that for John.
And let me just double check that for you.
Yeah, I can tell him as well, because we would
I
have
think
covered
that we
it.
normally gets a different directive during the December period.
Yeah.
But we haven't had any directive on that at this current time. But I know that the duty rate has actually, or the rate allowance, sorry, is 800 from 500.
Yeah. So July the 3rd, this is why you got to keep on top of CMR. We've got an article here that says Cabinet approves increased duty allowances for returning residents. So the details are, it went from $500 CI to $800 beginning the 1st of September 2026. However, for the period of 1st of July through August the 31st, returning residents can bring in personal and household goods worth up to $1,000 CI duty-free at the discretion of CBC. And officials said that the window is meant to ease the cost of back-to-school shopping, including uniforms, shoes, electronics, and other such essentials. And then beginning September the 1st, now the regular duty allowance will jump from $500 to $800. And then during the December month, Christmas season, from November the 23rd, 2026 to January the 7th, 2027, you will have again the temporary increase back up to $1,000 for residents returning from Christmas shopping. So that's the Christmas travel season from the 23rd of November to the 7th of January. All right. Very good, John. And sometimes we can't remember this information. That's why I love, the CMR. You just go in there, type on the website. I just put in duty, and it came right up with the article that gave all those information, all those details. Abaya says, I have every confidence in Mr. Bodden. He's obviously very competent and committed. Irvlin says, I don't give any trouble at all. I hand it to them without them even having to ask for it. Anthony says, well, thankfully, Officer Susan has retired and isn't there anymore. She was always overzealous. She would run out of the office and get junior officers to do secondary and people she didn't like. Oh, Lord. I don't know who the heck Officer Susan is, but all right. If you have officers that the public thinks, let me ask you this, Mr. Bodden, if you have officers that people think are sort of picking on people for the wrong reason, is there a way for the general public to file complaints with your agency?
Yes, yeah, we have a CBC complaints email. And of course, there's an opportunity for individuals to always go on our website and actually make it'll take you to the complaint section, and you'll be able to do it, which is www.cbc.gov.ky, and they can actually make their complaints there if they have any complaint that they need to make of any officer that they feel was overzealous, and we will investigate those.
Yes. Okay. All right. Very good. This person says, Miss Sandra, just playing devil's advocate, can you ask if a family of 3 returning arrives, a 16-year-old is included? Does that mean that they get the allowance as well? Yes. Even children get the allowance, right?
Yes.
So it's any traveler.
Yeah, there's no age limit on the allowance. You could just be 1 day old, born, and you get the same allowance. And that is the reason why we have one of the best systems in the Caribbean, because other countries tend to actually have that and no discretion with anything. You have to be a certain age in order to do that, or you can travel this morning, go overseas, or when I say overseas, out of the islands, and return tonight, and you get that 800, and you can go again tomorrow morning and do that. You get that same 800. A lot of other countries don't allow it like that. So we have one of the best systems when it comes on dealing with, giving allowances to our returning residents.
Yeah. Huh. So someone reminded us that back in 2017, CMR carried an article in October. This was our early days yet, but apparently we carried an article that said, the headline said, no sex toys seized. And it talked about the fact that multiple media concerns about the seizure of sex toys by Customs. The collector of Customs, who was Mr. Charles Clifford at the time, stated that upon his personal review of the matter, he had determined that there was no recent seizure of sex toys from, this was Reflections store. Apparently Reflections was selling them. He confirmed that earlier this year, Customs officers detained some items from Reflections because they suspected that they were sex toys, and that an offense may have been committed under Section 157 of the Penal Code. The suspicion based on their search concerning the particular product. And anyway, at the end of the day, it was, I think, challenged. And as a result of that, a referral to the DPP's office said no. So there you go. They are, if you bring them in, I suppose, in the right way, then you have a right to do so. Mr. George Bodden, is he family to you? I'm not sure. But he says her mom is in her mid-90s, and she looks like 60-something. So maybe speaking to some good genes that runs in the family.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, my mom is, and I praise her every day for making sure that she keep us straight with her prayers and love. She celebrated her 95th birthday on 4th of June. And she is very busy and keeping up to date with things. As a matter of fact, she keep me up to date with a lot of things that I that I don't know, But yes, God bless her with that amount of years that she have in
Yes. Wonderful. All right, Abby, thank you for that comment. We do have a caller in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandy. Good morning, Mr. Marlon. I don't know if Mr. Marlon remember me, but I know him very good. His dad used to work with my husband. But I have a question. Mr. Marlon, if a person, okay, they are Caymanian, but they don't live here. They live in the U.S. But, they got American passport, they got Cayman passport. But are they coming home and they bring stuff, for their parents? Do they still have their allowance privileges?
Okay, so what qualifies you as a resident? I think that's the question.
So this person is Caymanian, they're returning.
Aren't Caymanian, but they just don't live here now. They live in the U.S., but they come, frequent, and they bring stuff to their parents. So I want to find out if they still qualify for the allowance when they're coming in.
I think it's supposed to be for people who are resident on island.
Yeah. Under the circumstances,
not resident, they're born Caymanian.
No, but that's the point. The allowance is for people who are resident. So if they're Caymanians that no longer live in the Cayman Islands and not resident, and they're just visiting, by law, they shouldn't be qualifying.
I don't understand that. That's what they were told. I don't think.
Yeah, but that's. You have to understand. No, I hear what you're saying, but you have to understand what the word resident means and what the intent of the allowance is, so that people who live here, who are bringing back personal goods, really for themselves, get that benefit of the allowance. So if they're not even resident Cayman, yes, they may be Caymanians, but
they are not residents.
Then they don't get it. There. I get it. Then they don't qualify. Home. They don't qualify.
Oh, Lord.
Yes, my dear.
To me, that's ludicrous.
Well, it makes sense once you understand what resident means. But all right, leave us there, Michelle. I appreciate the question. Yes, it's for residents, returning residents, and it specifically says that even with your declaration. So if you're a Caymanian that now lives overseas, when you're coming back, you're coming as a visitor. I mean, we get it that you're Caymanian, obviously, but you do not get the benefit of a resident benefit because you're not resident here anymore. But when you go back to wherever you're resident, so if you go back to the U.S., then you get your allowance on that end. It is a little bit, I understand what she's saying because she thinks every Caymanian should get it forever, but it's about, and it's not just Caymanians that get it, it's any resident. So even if you're not a Caymanian, but you live here, you're resident on island, you're on a work permit. If you go to Miami for the weekend, you coming back, you get the allowance too, and you're not a Caymanian. So when you look at it that way, maybe it makes a little bit more sense. I'm not sure, but that's how it works. Miss Lucille, thank you so much. What she said, don't even start telling people to bring witchcraft home. Lord have mercy. No one, I don't think anybody is suggesting that, Miss Lucille. Good morning, caller.
Sandy, no. I want to get this part straight.
And Lord have mercy.
I'm moving back home. And when
if you're moving back home, all right, Miss Lucille, listen very, very carefully. And when you're doing things like moving back home, what you should do, in my honest opinion, you reach out to CBC before you travel, so that everything is organized properly. There's no confusion. When you get to the airport, there's no mix up with what you're doing, whatever. If you're moving back home, hold on now. Hold on.
I come down a couple of times.
Hold on.
When I came home a couple of times, I paid duty.
All right. As by law, you were supposed to do so. Yeah, but if you're moving back home, right? There is a moving back home allowance situation, normally for students. So for example, if they're off to university for 4 or 5 years and they're finally coming back, but I think it's any returning resident, because even myself, after being away for 15 years, way back in 1996, when I came back, I had to go through this process of saying, okay, I'm returning home. And they give you, what's the amount of allowance that you get if you're moving back home?
Well, it's the same consideration. It's just that what we do is assess the goods to make sure that they're really used items, and
Right.
if it's new, then you have to pay duties on those.
Yeah. So when you're
Mr.
moving back,
Bodden, I don't bring for myself alone. I always give it away. I believe in sharing. I always giving.
yeah.
So I
And
don't feel
so
like
let's clarify.
anyway, when that time come, because Sandy,
Just reach out to them and they'll assist you.
you don't even, don't mess up Mr. Bodden brain now. I hear you talking about witchcraft. Listen to me carefully.
Lord have mercy.
Not in the Cayman Islands.
Mr. Bodden's brain is not going to be confused by such idle things, I can assure you.
Leave it when Melissa take it. We don't need no witchcraft in Cayman. All we need is our Bible and pray. I don't go to church, but I'm a true believer.
All right. All right. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Okay.
I'm done with you for the day now.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.
So let's not get fixated on the minor. But here's the thing. It's very, very simple at the end of the day, folks. And Evelyn says it. So Evelyn says, that's right, Auntie, because I'm a Jamaican citizen by birth with Caymanian papers. And when I traveled to Jamaica, they asked me how long I'm staying. I was like, what? They said, you do not live here. That's right. She's not a resident of Jamaica anymore. So she's not going to get the resident allowance. Now, let's clarify this bit. When you're bringing in goods for other people, right? So it's not personally for yourself. You know, Caymanians, we always trying to help each other out. Somebody says, oh, Sandy, I got this package. Can you bring it in for me? Are you supposed to treat that as part of your allowance, or strictly by law, are you supposed to declare that separately for them? It's just personal effects, so it's nothing for business or anything like that. But how should the declaration work if it's actually goods for someone else?
The goods for someone else is not a distinction. No. The traveler is in possession of the goods. They are in control of the goods. They must declare that. The agreement of them bringing the goods in for someone else is totally separate and apart from making the declaration.
Okay. So do they get the allowance on, like, say I'm bringing in something for a friend, her items are $200, my items.
Be the traveler.
Yes. So I'm the traveler, and I'm bringing it in. I can use my allowance for her goods, basically, is what I'm saying.
The total is 800, for example.
Yes.
You can't say because I'm bringing in for Marlon now, and he's not here, that he's going to get the benefit.
No. That's not what I'm asking. No.
So it just stays to total. The total amount is the 800. Correct.
Yes. Because some people get confused by this. And I've seen, sometimes they say, hey, I got a, whatever, a pair of shoes that I clearly don't need sitting in Miami. Can you grab it at the mailbox since you're going there? And they're not bringing anything in. So if they're traveling back, they get that same allowance. They could use it without being like, oh, no, Sandy has to go to the airport and collect it herself and pay the whole duty herself. They could just say, yeah, I'm just bringing this in for her, and it's counting towards my duty because I didn't buy anything. Yeah. Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
My friend.
Let's look at it from a different shape.
Yes.
We have had individuals that actually claim that the goods belong to someone else after we have identified illegal contraband in the goods.
Oh, yeah.
So who is now responsible?
Sorry.
Bless you.
The person, thank you. The person who's bringing it in. Yeah, you're, and that's why.
The law don't make a distinction. You are the individual that is in possession and control of it. You have to make the declaration. Whether it belongs to your sister, brother, auntie, or whatever that is not traveling with you, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
The whole point is that you are in possession and must declare it.
I'm going to tell you something now, right? This means that, remember that officer I was telling you about that I had a bad experience with? That means that they actually gave me wrong information at the airport, But it was a strange situation because I had traveled with someone else. And so we traveled together, stayed at the hotel together, everything. She brought in my suitcase, right? I went out minding my own business. She actually had my suitcase because we were kind of sharing luggage. towards the end of the trip. So I had more pieces than her available. And so she's like, oh, can I put stuff in your suitcase? And I say, yeah, you go ahead and take that suitcase. She brought that suitcase in. There was no attempt to hide anything from customs because all of my pieces have a big metal ID tag that says Sandra Hill, my address and my phone number. You couldn't miss it if you tried. The officer accused me of trying to have her, who was traveling with me, bring in my goods and trying to avoid customs duty. And she was well within her allowance. So whatever was in the bag for me, I guess, also was within her allowance. So that situation, now that I'm understanding this, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, that situation actually should have never occurred. Because if she's within her allowance, even if she has a few items in a suitcase for me or a bag for me, as long as it's within the allowance for her as a traveler, everything should be fine. Because I was hauled in and searched everything and told that, you were trying to avoid customs duty. I'm like, no, I wasn't. Like, I had actually left the airport and was outside because my ride was coming before hers, right? And they pulled me back into the airport and made this big scene and, now you're going to be flagged in the system. And I was like, what? It was, I don't think they ever flagged me because I've never had an issue since then. But that is very, very interesting. So how do you ensure, this brings me to a broader point, how do you ensure that your officers are understanding? Because there are sometimes little nuances, like here, we're kind of discovering this. How do you make sure that they understand what the law says and what their powers of search and even, how people are supposed to pay their duties? How do you make sure that that happens properly?
All right, let me read a section for you in the law, right? Section 2 of the CBC Act says this under the definition of importer, because this question is coming from outside the jurisdiction. It says, includes any owner or other person for the time being having a right to possession of or being beneficially interested in any imported goods with the effect from the time of import of such goods until the same has been duly customed.
Okay. All right. So the law clarifies it. We've got a caller in the line. Caller, question or comment for Mr. Bodden. I'm conscious of the time as well. We're going to be wrapping up here shortly. Mr. Bodden does have a 10 o'clock previous appointment. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning, dear. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good.
And
sounding much better today.
Thank you. And good morning to you, Mr. Bodden. Congratulations.
Good morning, and thank you very much.
I was actually thinking that it would be so proud of you just about now. I don't know if you've covered this already, but there's certain items that are duty-free.
Yes.
You've covered that already?
I don't think we've gone through the list as I'm sure it's probably quite an extensive list.
But that's fine. I'm not asking you to go through the list, but maybe Mr. Bodden could speak to that because that is something that I have found that a lot of the officers don't know.
Yes.
Because I know there was a time when I'm a reader, so I always like books. And there was a time I was being charged on my books, and it wasn't until some few years ago.
Oh wow!
That an officer, because I was writing everyone down, declaring it, and anyway, so an officer pointed it out to me, and up until then, I was very, very shocked because no one had said they're duty free, and I know of certain other items because one or two officers pointed that out to me as well. But I think that is where we have a breakdown between officer and traveler. So maybe, you could speak to it, even if you can't go through the whole list, or maybe just point out the common things that people, bring in that was all in that
Thank you so much. Where in the law, thank you, Miss Brenda, where in the law can we go and look up for ourselves? I know all these laws are now available online so that we can see what items are duty free. Because even with school materials, I know that I think it's lined books that you write in. Are those duty free or not duty free? There's a distinction with types of books as well.
School books. Yeah, you can look under the Customs Tariff Act, which is a very, very voluminous document, and it will actually show you, the types of goods that are actually duty free. Things like CCTV cameras and equipment; those things are all duty free. Leather belts. I know there's some issues in the terms of deciding or being able to distinguish whether or not something is leather from synthetic leather from some other type of materials, and those things always causes a lot of dialogue for us to get to the bottom of. And of course, the caller mentioned about books and so on, right? But again, it depends on the book. So the books, when I say the book, if let's say, for example, I mentioned earlier about there are certain magazines, for example, that are prohibited in the terms of Hustler magazine, Playboy magazine, things like those things are prohibited items and so on, even though they're a book, right? So we still have to strike that balance. And I know that the caller was not, mentioning anything like that, but I just wanted to make a distinction. And
Yes.
there's quite a number of different items, some medical supplies as well, like wheelchairs and crutches and those kind of things. There's a lot, there's a whole big list that is there. But what we have been doing, again, I mentioned about the training and so on, is that, of course, I've made a note of what the caller said, that we can actually refresh our officers to make sure that they themselves are familiar with some of the things that are there. When a person presents a receipt at the border for the purchases that they have, the officer takes it and goes through the itemized list, and they strike off anything that is on it that does not have to be charged duties on it, on the receipt, because the receipts are itemized. So I do understand and appreciate what a caller mentioned, and if they had that experience, then that is something that we can speak and deal with to make sure that everybody is treated fairly, because that's what it's all about. If an officer makes a mistake, they're human. We can address it and get it resolved, and resolved to satisfaction, where it is lessons learned for us, and also the traveling public feels like they have been treated fairly. So we take on board anything that we can learn from. And if the caller had an experience like that, I'll welcome the caller to give me a shout, and let's see if we can get it corrected, because it's all about making sure that we treat people fairly.
All right, very good. We're going to go ahead and wrap up now. Thank you so much. Waking Up the Cayman Islands says, I have a lot of books and a machine to bring when I am moving home. I plan to leave a lot behind. It doesn't make sense to bring non-sentimental things that can be purchased in Cayman back home. But you'd be surprised when Caymanians are returning. They return with cars and all sorts of stuff. So there's a whole list of things there. One final question from Anthony before we end the segment today. He says, Sandy, can you ask this question, please, if I missed it? With the rise in CBC border control detentions and firearm interceptions, does he believe that travelers are doing enough personal research before traveling, or are they attempting to evade local laws? Additionally, what is his perspective on the sentencing disparities between locals and expats? And finally, how does he view the paradox of having unlimited information via smartphones alongside a perceived decline in public discernment? So a lot going on there, but I think this is more about the firearms. And I did see Mr. Alwick Lindsay also asking a question. This one was about the skimming equipment. So let's answer both of those. So the first one really is enough being done for people to educate themselves? I honestly think the government has an obligation to do more, because I'll tell you why I say that. When I traveled to Ecuador in March, when we were going to the Galapagos, on the loudspeaker, there was constant reminders. You cannot bring this into this country. I've traveled to other jurisdictions and they'll tell you, no firearms allowed in this country. You hear it at the counter before you even check in your bag. So oh my gosh, did I forget to leave an AK-47 in my handbag or my suitcase? Or, Caymanians assume, and I know that strictly by law, lack of knowing the law is no excuse, but I think there's still more that could be done, and this falls outside your remit. But what are your thoughts on that to see if we can improve public education, especially for visitors who are coming to the Cayman Islands, to let them know we take a very strict approach to firearms and any firearm paraphernalia?
Right. Okay. So we work closely with our partners, right? The Department of Tourism and the likes. And we also have on our website, things that you should not bring to the island. I'm certain, and I have seen it, where the Department of Tourism has actually advised and has advisories on their website about individuals not coming to the Cayman Islands with drugs. We're not coming with firearms. And make your research if you're in doubt about certain things and so on. We have signage in the airports, um, where individuals, they have a lot of signs up there saying, you're not supposed to bring these type of prohibited items there. I personally see them in international airports where they say these things are forbidden firearms, drugs, and batteries, and all sorts of different things are there for people to actually see. In addition to that, there's also PA advisors, public address advisors in airports, not to leave your bags unattended, don't carry this for people, if you're carrying this, and then you have the physical individual that asks questions when you check in. Do you have this in your bag? Do you have computers? Do you have this? Do you have that? Now, again, we can't cater for every possible eventuality, right? But I think that is only reasonable that if we are traveling to another country, that we pay attention to what we may be carrying, right? I know that things become a habit, in environments where firearms are a part of their culture and all of that kind of stuff. But think about it, they had to pass through security as well, right? So we all pass through security, and unless there's some other means that they would have actually entered the aircraft, then that is it. And again, we are strict. We are not about compromising in any way. When individuals breach these laws, we have to take action in respect to those, and we're going to continue to do it. Of course, we're going to continue to issue our advisories and make sure that the individuals understand that this is serious business. I move now in relation to the skimming equipment that the other caller was asking about. Yes, we had a matter that we had been dealing with. Good detection by the officers at the controls, and I commend them for the excellent work that they continue to do. We then uses these type of forfeited equipment for training purposes, to let the staff see the types, because they come in different forms. Sometimes it's not really something that you notice that easily, because of course, the criminal try to camouflage these things in many different ways and all that kind of stuff. So we use those as opportunities to show our staff, look, this is the type of ways that individuals are camouflaging their equipment. So we have to be aware of that. So we learn from them, and in order to make the borders more smarter in that space.
All right.
Prohibited items and restricted items we pay very close attention to those. Firearms, component parts. We don't want to fixate ourselves on the actual firearm itself. We know that individuals will be patient and take their time, and they'll import small little bits and then piece it together. We understand all of that. And that's the reason why I mentioned continuous training and upskilling the staff is what we're all about, to make sure that they continue to do their jobs as professional as they can. And I won't lose this opportunity to say, please feed back to us information that will make us better. We honestly want to listen to the public. The public wants us to carry our jobs professionally. And sometimes if we miss it, we want the public to tell us what we need to do. We're not going to take any offense to that. We're going to learn from these things. And that is the way that we operate here at CBC, and the kind of welcoming organization that I am trying to build.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anthony wants to know if you have any thoughts, which I know this is outside your remit, but any thoughts on the disparity in sentencing between expats and locals for evasion?
Well, I deliberately didn't mention that because that is something I don't get myself involved in. I'm an enforcer of the law. The courts deal with that other part.
Mm-hmm. All right. Question here. How many CBC officer hours would you estimate go into single tourist cannabis / gummy importation case from detection to the end of court? And what does the public get back from that? I ask because in most cases involving less than 2 ounces, the courts do not record a conviction for tourists.
I wish I could put the amount of balance that it takes in the terms of prevention.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, or we don't only have the responsibility to detect, but we also try to prevent. If those somewhat cannabis gummies fall in the wrong hands and is given to a little young baby, for example, because some individual is not in any way sensible enough to realize what they are doing, then individuals could see that that's very small thing that they now are saying is small has created a lifelong hurt and damage to some family or families. We cannot look at it so narrowly to say, well, oh, you're wasting all of this human hours to be able to do this. Prevention is a big part of what we do. Big part of what we do. And again, I won't get into the aspect of the courts component. That is for the courts. Our job is to make sure we do it and try to make the country safer and try to educate the community that we are about border security, border management, facilitating legitimate trade and travel, and making sure that we provide a professional customer service. It's not about just looking at things in a limited way to say, oh, well, it's only this small amount, so we can put a blind eye to that. We can't do that because it affects lives.
Yes. One final question, and then we're going to let you go. Alric Lindsay says CBC detected people entering the airport with credit card scamming equipment. However, the people have only received a few months in prison. Given the huge risk to the public, has CBC discussed with stakeholders how legislation could be strengthened to create greater penalties for these offenders? So maybe we broaden that question even more. When you start to detect certain things, Mr. Marlon, happening in terms of the entry, because it's always changing. People are getting creative, as you say, about what they're bringing in. Do you then communicate these concerns at the ministerial level in case it requires any sort of like legislative amendments or changes, requires you getting more resources to be able to continue to effectively have your officers detect some of what's going on? Some of your officers have said, look, I love my job. I love working with CBC. They are doing a great job. I'm catching contraband and other things, but they're not, in their opinion, being adequately compensated for the rising costs of living. Do you take these concerns to the ministry to say, here's what's going on?
Yes, we do have discussions around that, and we definitely positively address those. And the reality is, like you mentioned, is a constant shift, is a constant movement in how things operate. And everybody got different motivators, and we do appreciate that. Some persons are motivated by more salary. Some people are motivated by getting the work done. A lot of different ways that individuals tend to want to take their motivation. But every case that we deal with, we actually route that through Department of Public Prosecutions. And they always give us very, very good advice, either for the particular case or for the future. And in addition, when the case is completed, we actually have a wash up and have a discussion. I meet with the Department of Public Prosecutions and ask them, please be a critical friend of us. Let us know what we can do to improve. We don't have an issue with improving. We want to continue to do it. We know that, we are living in a technical minefield. If we need to be a little bit more descriptive, let us know. Because we're not going to just sit here and say, okay, yeah, well, the individual went to court, the courts dealt with them, so that our job is done. It's a business of continuous learning. So we utilize those opportunities to let individuals advise us. And we listen also to what the courts say in relation to how they see business, and we learn from that. And we take that back to the classroom, we take it back to our offices, and we say, listen, this is how the courts are looking at these things. We have to improve. We look at case law, we look at different things, and we have case studies and training. So the officers go through it and say, look, these are some of the things that the courts are asking us, so we need to be prepared. So we are working at that. We are creating our environment to be able to continually train and refresh those officers that may not have actually been in the classroom for a little while. So it's work in progress, but it's not lost on us that it's about lifelong learning.
Yes. All right, folks, thank you so much. Lots of great questions came in today for Mr. Bodden. We appreciate you joining us on the program. So many good questions, and there's lots more. So we hope that we can continue this forward-facing with the public communication with yourself and your senior management team, because, this is what people love. They love to see directors and head of agencies come and talk directly with the people, because everything you do impacts the greater Cayman Islands community and impacts all of our lives. So we appreciate you, sir, coming onto the program and taking the time out of your busy schedule to do so.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sandra. I really appreciate the opportunity to engage with yourself and your listening audience. And I just want to take this opportunity to publicly thank my staff for all the excellent work that they're doing. It's tremendous. I know it's tough, and we ask a lot of them, but I want to thank them. And I also want to thank our ministry, our minister, Mr. DaCosta. I want to thank our chief officer, Mr. Michael E. Banks, and our deputy chief officer, Ms. Debbie Ann Whitaker. Very supportive, continue to give us advice and guidance where we need to, and work along, just like how we working along with our team. So we have a wonderful team. We intend to make the Cayman Islands proud, or prouder, and to make sure that we continue. And I just want to say this, that, from my perspective and so on, I think that preparedness is never something that is complete. In the terms of preparing the staff to be able to do whatever they need to do. And, we will continue to assess risk and to strengthen our staff, our people, our systems, our partnerships, and of course, our capabilities to undertake this onerous task that we have. And I want to thank you again for hosting the show.
Fantastic. All right, we'll see you next time, folks. Let's give a big virtual round of applause to Mr. Marlon Bodden, who's the new director for CBC. We appreciate him again coming on the program. Hopefully we'll see him again in the not too distant future. Sir, have a wonderful day and rest of your week.
Thank you very much and appreciate it. Same to you.
All right. All right, folks, that's all she wrote today. I've got to get to court because I want to be able to bring you guys the latest information as and when it happens in relation to the verdict, the child murder case that we are awaiting. And so keep it tuned, keep it locked in here to CMR. We'll have that information available to you as soon as we know. And then we can discuss it perhaps on tomorrow's program if it has wrapped up. Until then, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the morning at 7:30. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.